Welcome to InfoStream, your daily current. Unsure what to listen to? Turn to us for today's headlines. Stay informed. Ongoing conflict fuels protests globally. The Trump administration increases immigration enforcement. Government shutdown creates a shifting political landscape. Attorney General Bondi faces Senate scrutiny. James Comey indicted in a historic case. France grapples with a political crisis and high debt. UK spy case reveals government hesitation. Trump and Carney relations remain strained. US border trends influence UK conservative plans. Gold prices rise due to market uncertainty. EU tariffs threaten UK industry. Ethiopia accuses Eritrea of preparing for war. Myanmar military attacks intensify at a festival. UK trade mission focuses on a trade deal. Burkina Faso detains INSO workers. The digests ongoing conflict and associated protests. The ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas continues to dominate global news, marked by intense bombardment in Gaza and escalating tensions surrounding related protests. As the second anniversary of the October 7th attacks approaches, the situation remains deeply complex and fraught with emotional and political ramifications. The primary focus remains the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, where over 173 people have been killed according to Hamas's health ministry. Israeli forces are conducting heavy air and artillery strikes across Gaza, targeting neighborhoods including Tal al-Hawa, Rimmel, and Sheikh Radwan. Residents express fear and anxiety, particularly regarding nightly air raids and the potential for further loss of life. Amidst this backdrop, widespread protests have erupted globally, primarily in response to the anniversary of the attacks. In Scotland, demonstrations took place in Edinburgh and Glasgow, drawing students who expressed solidarity with Palestinians and condemned the ongoing violence. Protesters emphasized the need to acknowledge the suffering of civilians in Gaza and called for an end to the conflict. However, the protests have also sparked controversy and heightened concerns about anti-Semitism. Following a plea from Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer to refrain from demonstrations, some attendees were accused of insensitive behavior. A Scottish woman, whose brother was killed in the October 7th attacks, expressed deep sorrow and frustration, highlighting the need for the return of hostages and the bodies of those killed. The situation is further complicated by anxieties surrounding anti-Semitism, with some observers warning that protests could provide a platform for hate speech. Despite these concerns, many protesters maintain their commitment to justice and human rights, emphasizing the importance of international pressure for a lasting resolution. Negotiations between Israeli and Hamas representatives continue in Sharm el-Sheikh, mediated by Egypt, but progress remains elusive. Key sticking points include a ceasefire, the exchange of hostages and prisoners, Israeli withdrawal maps, humanitarian aid deliveries, and post-war governance of Gaza. The conflict's impact extends beyond the immediate region, fueling global debate and raising fundamental questions about international law, human rights, and the pursuit of peace. Trump administration intensifies immigration enforcement in Chicago. The Trump administration is aggressively deploying federal law enforcement, spearheaded by Chief Patrol Agent of the El Centro sector, Gregory Bovino, to Chicago, marking a significant escalation in its immigration enforcement strategy. This operation, involving approximately 2,000 agents, aims to counter perceived threats stemming from protests and alleged criminal activity, primarily targeting individuals suspected of involvement with transnational gangs. Bovino's leadership is central to this effort, characterized by a heavy-handed approach, including immigration sweeps in public spaces, shattering car windows, and utilizing chemical irritants against demonstrators and media personnel. The operation's core objective is to maintain agent safety amid what Bovino describes as a very real threat, leading to heightened vigilance and proactive intervention. Bovino's extensive 30-year career with the Border Patrol, encompassing roles in Washington, New Orleans, Honduras, and Africa, underscores the seriousness of the undertaking. He is currently focused on the Chicago operation, prioritizing intelligence-driven deployments based on identified threats. Local officials, particularly Mayor Brandon Johnson, are actively resisting the administration's actions, implementing executive orders prohibiting immigration enforcement on city property. Bovino dismisses these measures as pipe dreams, asserting his commitment to carrying out the administration's mission regardless of local opposition. Concerns have been raised regarding potential racial profiling, with Bovino acknowledging that factors such as a person's demeanor could influence agent interactions. Despite these challenges, Bovino remains steadfast in his commitment to maintaining order and ensuring agent safety. The operation's scope extends beyond targeting suspected gang members, encompassing broader immigration enforcement efforts across the city. Bovino's team is currently operating on intelligence-driven deployments, with no immediate announcement of their next target. The administration's strategy represents a significant shift in immigration enforcement, prioritizing proactive intervention and unwavering commitment to its objectives. The government shut down a complex and shifting landscape. As the United States government remains in a partial shutdown, a series of developments highlight the escalating complexity of the situation and the shifting dynamics between political parties. The primary driver of the shutdown stems from a fundamental disagreement over funding levels and policy riders, with Republicans primarily focused on defunding certain programs, while Democrats insist on continued funding for government operations. A key element of the dispute centers around enhanced Obamacare subsidies, which are currently set to expire, potentially leading to a doubling of health insurance premiums for many Americans. Republican leaders, including House Speaker Mike Johnson, have attempted to portray the situation as a strategic holding position, arguing that the issue of the subsidies should be addressed after the shutdown concludes. However, the emergence of comments from Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, a staunch conservative, has complicated this approach. Greene's strong support for extending the subsidies, despite her party's broader opposition, has provided Democrats with a significant advantage, bolstering their argument that the issue warrants immediate attention. Johnson has attempted to downplay Greene's comments, suggesting she lacks insight into ongoing negotiations. Nevertheless, Greene's intervention has amplified the pressure on Republican leadership and created an uncomfortable situation for the party. The dynamic has shifted, with Democrats now able to frame the Republican stance as lacking seriousness regarding the potential impact on American citizens. The situation is further complicated by public opinion, which overwhelmingly supports extending the Obamacare subsidies. A recent poll revealed that even a majority of MAGA-aligned Republicans favored the extension, indicating a significant disconnect between the Republican Party's stated positions and the views of its base. Despite these challenges, Republican leaders remain committed to their strategy of using the shutdown as leverage. However, the increasing pressure from within their own party, coupled with the public's support for the subsidies, raises questions about the long-term viability of this approach. The ongoing negotiations are expected to be protracted and fraught with difficulty, with the potential for a resolution remaining uncertain. Attorney General Pam Bondi faces intense scrutiny in Senate hearing. Attorney General Pam Bondi's testimony before the Senate Judiciary Committee revealed a contentious session marked by accusations of political interference and a defense of the Justice Department's actions. The hearing centered on several key areas, including the prosecution of former FBI Director James Comey, the handling of the January 6th investigations, and broader concerns about the independence of the Department of Justice. Bondi repeatedly deflected questions aimed at demonstrating a partisan bias within the DOJ, arguing that the actions taken were based on legal evidence and not political motivations. She staunchly defended the indictment of Comey, asserting the grand jury's liberal leanings and framing the charges as a necessary response to Comey's alleged misleading testimony to Congress. A central point of contention was the revelation that the phone records of 8 Republican senators and a House lawmaker were obtained as part of Special Counsel Jack Smith's investigation into Trump and 2020 election interference. Bondi condemned this action as a betrayal of public trust, alleging a deliberate attempt to undermine law enforcement. Throughout the hearing, Bondi emphasized the DOJ's commitment to upholding the law, regardless of political considerations. However, her responses were frequently met with skepticism from Democratic senators, who accused her of enabling a two-tiered system of justice. The exchange highlighted deep divisions within the political landscape regarding the DOJ's role and independence. The session underscored ongoing concerns about potential political influence within the Department of Justice and the implications for the integrity of the legal system. The testimony concluded without a clear resolution, reflecting the complex and polarized nature of the issues at hand. Former FBI Director James Comey faces criminal charges in historic indictment. Former FBI Director James Comey has been formally indicted on 2 criminal charges stemming from his 2020 congressional testimony regarding classified information leaks. The indictment, secured by interim U.S. Attorney Todd Halligan, marks a significant and unprecedented legal challenge for the former director, fueled by President Donald Trump's persistent accusations of wrongdoing. The charges involve providing false statements and obstructing a congressional proceeding, accusations that have been central to Trump's ongoing efforts to discredit Comey and other political opponents. The legal proceedings are rooted in Comey's 2020 testimony, where he stated he had not authorized anyone to serve as an anonymous source in news reports regarding an FBI investigation. This statement was later determined to be false, triggering the indictment. The case highlights a contentious chapter in American politics, marked by intense political maneuvering and legal battles. Todd Halligan, appointed as interim U.S. Attorney, secured the indictment despite facing criticism and scrutiny. The appointment itself has been questioned by Comey's legal team, citing the limited tenure of interim prosecutors. The team is preparing to challenge Halligan's appointment, arguing it violates Senate confirmation requirements. The legal team is also anticipating a robust defense against arguments of political bias, a strategy employed by Trump in related cases. The team is preparing to present evidence to demonstrate the politically motivated nature of the prosecution. The case is unfolding against a backdrop of heightened political tensions. Trump has repeatedly called for the Justice Department to pursue charges against Comey and other political adversaries. The legal team anticipates a prolonged and complex legal battle. The appointment of Halligan, a White House aide, has raised concerns about potential bias. The team is prepared to challenge her appointment and the overall fairness of the proceedings. The legal team is also preparing to present evidence to demonstrate the politically motivated nature of the prosecution. The legal team anticipates a prolonged and complex legal battle. France's political crisis intensifies as outgoing Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu struggles to form a stable government, with the threat of new parliamentary elections looming. The crisis stems from a hung parliament, following June 2024 elections and deep ideological divisions between political parties, particularly regarding France's crippling national debt, currently at nearly 114% of GDP, and projected to hit 5.4% of GDP this year. Macron's repeated attempts to form a government have failed due to resistance from various parties, including the conservative Republicans, the radical left France Unbowed, and the far-right National Rally. Lecornu's resignation, triggered by criticism from Bruno Retailleau, followed a short 26-day tenure. He was given 48 hours to present a platform of action and stability to President Macron, aiming for a budget agreement by December 31st to avert dissolution of parliament. Key figures include Macron, Lecornu, Retailleau, Marine Le Pen, Jordan Bardella, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, Olivier Faure, Gabriel Attal, and Yavel Braun-Pivet. Several potential outcomes exist. If a government is formed, Macron would appoint a new prime minister, though Lecornu has ruled this out. Alternatively, Macron could take responsibility, triggering fresh elections, likely benefiting Le Pen's national rally within 40 days. Macron's presidency ends in 18 months, but pressure for his resignation is mounting. The core challenge lies in addressing the debt and navigating political divisions. Proposals include suspending pension reforms, which would cost billions, or establishing a limited budget. However, compromise remains elusive. Retailleau and Bardella have repeatedly called for Macron's resignation, while Mélenchon continues to agitate for impeachment. Forest socialists are open to collaboration under certain conditions, including a left-wing government. Attal's stance reflects a growing disconnect within Macron's own Renaissance party. Braun-Pivet warned of very serious consequences if a deal isn't reached, emphasizing the urgency of the situation. The political landscape remains volatile, with the possibility of snap elections a persistent threat. The situation underscores the deep-seated challenges facing France's political system and the difficulty in achieving consensus amidst mounting economic and political pressures. UK spy case collapse highlights government hesitation and China's espionage efforts. Recent developments reveal a significant collapse in a UK espionage case, primarily due to the government's failure to adequately label China as a national security threat. The case against Christopher Cash and Christopher Berry, accused of spying for China, was dropped after prosecutors couldn't secure sufficient evidence, stemming from a precedent set by a separate Russian spying investigation. The key factor was the lack of a formal government assessment identifying China as a threat, a requirement established following that case. This failure directly impacted the prosecution's ability to proceed, highlighting a critical gap in the government's approach to counterintelligence. Simultaneously, a major cyber attack targeting Williams and Connolly, a prominent U.S. law firm with extensive political and corporate clients, has underscored China's ongoing espionage efforts. Suspected Chinese government-backed hackers breached the firm's systems, accessing the email accounts of select attorneys. This attack, alongside similar breaches targeting other law firms and cloud computing companies, suggests a coordinated campaign aimed at gathering intelligence related to trade, national security, and intellectual property. The attack on Williams and Connolly, which represents influential figures and major corporations, further emphasizes the strategic value of information held by such firms. The Chinese government consistently denies involvement in cyber attacks, often accusing the U.S. of similar activities. However, the escalating nature of these attacks coupled with the disruption of the UK espionage case, points to a sustained and sophisticated intelligence operation. Experts emphasize that law firms are particularly vulnerable due to the sensitive information they handle. The FBI is actively investigating these attacks, recognizing them as a significant state-backed cyber threat. The combined narrative reveals a concerning trend, a deliberate lack of proactive threat assessment by the UK government, alongside China's persistent and increasingly aggressive pursuit of intelligence, creating a landscape of heightened cybersecurity risks and strategic vulnerability. The ongoing investigations by the FBI and the continued scrutiny of Chinese espionage activities underscore the urgent need for robust national security strategies and enhanced cybersecurity defenses. Trump and Carney engage in contentious meeting amidst strained relations. Recent interactions between Prime Minister Mark Carney of Canada and President Donald Trump highlight the increasingly fraught state of U.S.-Canada relations. A central focus of the discussions revolved around persistent trade disputes, particularly stemming from U.S. tariffs imposed on Canadian goods and concerns regarding potential annexation of Canada. The meeting underscored a significant divergence in perspectives on key geopolitical issues, including the ongoing conflicts in various regions. A key element of the exchange involved Trump's continued assertions regarding trade agreements and his desire for bilateral deals rather than the current multi-country North American trade agreement. Carney's steadfast stance against these proposals, driven by concerns about their potential impact on Canada's economy, fueled further tensions. The discussion also touched upon the sensitive issue of fentanyl trafficking across the U.S.-Canada border, a catalyst for the existing tariffs. Throughout the meeting, Trump repeatedly expressed his dissatisfaction with the perceived complexities of the trade relationship and his ambition to be considered a great man. This sentiment, coupled with his interruptions and shifting topics, including the U.S. government shutdown and his efforts to resolve the Ukraine conflict, created a dynamic characterized by both tension and a degree of awkwardness. Despite the contentious atmosphere, Carney maintained a measured approach, prioritizing engagement over confrontation. He addressed Trump's concerns regarding fentanyl, acknowledging the need to reduce the flow of the drug, but reiterated Canada's commitment to upholding its trade interests. The meeting concluded with both leaders expressing their views, further solidifying the differences in their approaches. Ultimately, the encounter served as a stark reminder of the challenges facing the U.S.-Canada relationship under the current administration, characterized by divergent priorities and a noticeable lack of alignment. The exchange demonstrated a continued effort to navigate the complex dynamics of the relationship amidst significant disagreements. UK Conservative plans and US border trends. The Conservative Party's proposed economic plan, spearheaded by Kemi Badenoch, centers around a golden rule, allocating half of any savings to deficit reduction, with the other half dedicated to increased spending. This strategy, reliant on future savings, presents significant challenges in assessing its feasibility, particularly concerning long-term impacts on areas like welfare and immigration, which could dramatically change by the 2029 general election. The Conservatives project a $47 billion in annual savings and the $21 billion in additional spending, contingent upon their electoral success. Meanwhile, significant shifts are occurring at the U.S.-Mexico border. In fiscal year 2025, illegal border crossings reached a 50-year low, with 238,000 apprehensions recorded, the lowest since 1970s to 2000. During President Trump's initial 8 months, monthly apprehensions averaged under 9,000, according to CBS News. The Biden administration's first 4 months, October 2024, September 2025, saw 238,000 apprehensions. U.S. Customs and Border Patrol recorded approximately 11 million border encounters during Biden's tenure. Jenny Murray, president of the National Immigration Forum, highlighted the need for bipartisan legislation, acknowledging the positive trend in border security. The administration attributes the decrease to President Trump's immigration-related executive orders, including increased border security measures and expanded ICE capabilities. President Trump's administration has also focused on ending birthright citizenship and conducting immigration raids in major U.S. cities. White House spokesperson Abigail Jackson stated that the border figures demonstrate Trump's commitment to border security, asserting that the situation has improved and Americans are safer. The data underscores a notable shift in border activity, reflecting a complex interplay of policy changes and evolving migration patterns. Gold surge driven by uncertainty and central bank shifts. The price of gold has surged past a record $4,000 an ounce, fueled by heightened global economic and political uncertainty, alongside significant shifts in central bank investment strategies. The rally, the largest since the 1970s, is primarily attributed to the ongoing U.S. government shutdown, concerns over the Federal Reserve's policy decisions, and a weakening US dollar. Investors are increasingly turning to gold as a safe haven asset during this period of instability. Central banks globally have dramatically increased their gold holdings, purchasing over 1,000 tons annually since 2022, a significant rise from the 481 tons average between 2010 and 2021. Key buyers include Poland, Turkey, India, Azerbaijan, and China. This shift reflects a diversification away from U.S. Treasury holdings and a strategic move to reduce reliance on the dollar. The Bank of England's BOE has expressed concerns about the valuation of AI technology companies, noting similarities to the dot-com bubble of the early 2000s. The BOE's Financial Policy Committee highlighted the concentration of stock market valuations on a few large tech companies, particularly those focused on artificial intelligence, as a potential risk. The U.S. government shutdown continues to be a key driver of gold prices, with investors anticipating further volatility. The Fed's actions, particularly regarding interest rates, are also heavily scrutinized. A recent escalation of pressure from President Trump on the Fed chair, Jerome Powell, has further amplified concerns about the central bank's credibility. Retail investor interest in gold has also risen, with a record $64 billion invested in gold ETFs year to date. The Bank of England's assessment of the risks associated with the U.S. tech sector and the Fed's perceived lack of responsiveness to economic conditions are contributing to the gold rally. A resurgence in inflation and a potential Federal Reserve response through increased interest rates remain a significant risk to the gold price. The BOE's warnings about the valuation of AI tech companies underscore the broader market concerns surrounding overvalued assets. EU steel tariff hike threatens UK industry crisis. The European Union's planned hike in steel tariffs, aimed at reducing imports by half with subsequent 50% tariffs beyond 18.3 million tons annually, poses a significant crisis for the UK steel industry. This move, driven by concerns over global overcapacity, unfair competition, and state aid, represents a substantial blow following the indefinite postponement of a deal to eliminate tariffs on UK steel exports to the US. The EU's action, partially influenced by US President Trump's tariffs on foreign steel, mirrors similar protective measures adopted by Canada, Mexico, and Brazil. The UK steel industry, already struggling with financial difficulties evidenced by government control of Chinese-owned and Liberty Steel plants, faces potential disaster if it cannot secure UK country quotas. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer acknowledged the impact and stated ongoing discussions with the European Commission, while refusing to detail any potential exemptions sought by the UK. The UK Steel Director General, Gareth Stace, emphasized the urgent need for the government to leverage trade relationships to secure quotas. The community union termed the tariffs an existential threat to the industry. European Trade Commissioner Maros Sefcovic indicated a willingness to engage with the UK on the issue, suggesting potential quota negotiations. The Department for Business is actively pushing for clarification of the impact on UK trade flows. Industry Minister Chris MacDonald reiterated the government's commitment to supporting the steel industry, citing the successful access to the US market. The situation is further complicated by the ongoing financial distress within the UK steel sector, with several plants already under government control. The European Parliament's Vice Chair Kathleen Van Bremt pledged to advocate for the UK's interests. The news highlights a complex interplay of global trade pressures and the vulnerability of specific industries to protectionist measures, with potential long-term consequences for the UK steel industry. The government's response and ongoing negotiations will be crucial in determining the industry's future. Ethiopia accuses Eritrea of preparing for war amid Red Sea tensions. Rising tensions between Ethiopia and Eritrea are escalating, fueled by Ethiopia's accusation that Eritrea is preparing for war and actively destabilizing the country. This accusation, detailed in a letter to UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres by Ethiopian Foreign Minister Gideon Timotheus, centers on Eritrea's alleged collusion with a hardline faction of the Tigray People's Liberation Front, TPLF, to wage war against Ethiopia. The letter highlights concerns about Eritrea funding, mobilizing, and directing armed groups, particularly within Ethiopia's Amhara region, where the Fano militias are battling the federal government. The conflict stems from Ethiopia's desire to regain access to the Red Sea, a strategic goal that has long been a point of contention following Eritrea's control of the coastline at independence in 1993. Ethiopia argues it relinquished control of ports in error. The situation is further complicated by ongoing instability within Ethiopia, specifically the conflict in the Amhara region where the Fano militias, initially allied with Abiy Ahmed's government against the TPLF, are now actively seeking to topple the government and were implicated in the attempted capture of Woldia. Eritrea's involvement is seen as a direct response to Ethiopia's perceived threat to gain Red Sea access. The TPLF, led by Debretsion Gebremichael, controls the Tigray region and accuses Abiy's government of failing to fully implement the 2022 peace deal. Furthermore, Eritrea is accused of forming an alliance with the Debretsion-led TPLF faction. Eritrea's Information Minister Yemaine Gebremichael dismissed Ethiopia's concerns as too crass and pathetic to sell, criticizing the ruling party's obsession with the Red Sea and River Nile. The situation is further complicated by the ongoing conflict within Ethiopia and the involvement of various factions, including the Fano militias and the TPLF, creating a complex and volatile security landscape. Ethiopia emphasized the strategic importance of the Red Sea and River Nile to its existence, leading to a sharp rebuke from Eritrea. The conflict underscores deep-seated historical grievances and ongoing political instability within the region. Myanmar's military intensifies attacks, killing dozens at Buddhist festival. A devastating attack by Myanmar's military forces resulted in at least 24 deaths and 47 injuries during a peaceful protest held in Chongyu Township, Sagang region, on Monday evening. The incident occurred as approximately 100 individuals were gathered to commemorate Thadingit, a national holiday and full moon festival, and to express their opposition to the military junta's conscription policies and the upcoming national election. The military utilized a paraglider, locally known as a paramotor, to drop 2 bombs on the crowd, escalating an already volatile situation. This attack is part of a significant resurgence in military operations since the 2021 coup, characterized by widespread airstrikes and heavy bombardment. The junta has bolstered its air force through acquisitions of drones from China, which now fully supports the regime, and technical assistance from Russia. These efforts, coupled with Beijing's pressure on rebel groups along the Myanmar-China border to cease supplying weapons, have dramatically shifted the military balance. Local volunteer militias, known as the People's Defense Force (PDF), had anticipated the airborne attack and attempted to disperse the crowd swiftly. However, the paramotor arrived unexpectedly, causing immediate casualties and injuries. The attack targeted a key battleground region, with the PDF already controlling large portions of the Sagang region. The incident highlights the brutality of the ongoing civil war and the junta's disregard for civilian lives. Witnesses describe scenes of unimaginable devastation, with children among the fatally wounded. The attack underscores the urgent need for an end to the violence and the restoration of democracy in Myanmar. The situation remains deeply concerning, with the military continuing its offensive and the humanitarian crisis worsening for millions displaced by the conflict. UK trade mission to India prioritizes trade deal no visa changes. During a 2-day trade mission to India, Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer and a delegation of over 100 business leaders, cultural figures, and university representatives focused solely on bolstering the UK-India trade relationship, explicitly rejecting any plans to relax visa rules for Indian workers or students. The primary objective of the visit was to facilitate opportunities for Indian businesses to benefit from the recently signed UK-India trade agreement, which will reduce tariffs on exports of UK cars and whiskey to India, and Indian textiles and jewelry to the UK. A key element of the trade deal includes a 3-year exemption for Social Security contributions paid by Indian employees on short-term visas. The mission also saw the announcement of a significant cultural investment with Yash Raj Films, a leading Bollywood studio, committing to produce 3 films in the UK starting in 2026, creating an estimated 3,000 jobs and injecting millions into the UK economy. The studio's decision was directly linked to the trade agreement. British Airways and Manchester Airport also announced new direct routes to Delhi, further strengthening the economic ties. Despite the focus on trade, Starmer reiterated the Labour government's commitment to reducing immigration levels and its tough stance on settlement status. He emphasized that visas played no part in the trade deal, and that the UK's approach remained unchanged. Furthermore, Starmer intends to raise the case of Jagdir Singh Johal, a British Sikh man imprisoned in India for 7 years without a conviction, a consular priority. He also addressed the UK's ongoing concern regarding Russia's shadow fleet of oil tankers. Prior to the visit, Prime Minister Modi sent birthday greetings to Russian President Putin, a gesture Starmer declined to reciprocate. The trade mission represents a significant push to deepen the UK-India relationship and secure economic benefits through the trade agreement, with no changes anticipated to immigration policies. Burkina Faso detains INSO workers amidst security concerns. The Burkina military government has detained 8 members of the International NGO Safety Organization, INSO, on accusations of spying and treason, sparking international concern. INSO, a Dutch-based organization providing crucial safety information to aid workers, vehemently denies the allegations, asserting its operations were suspended in July following a 3-month ban for unauthorized data collection. The detained individuals include 3 Europeans, a Malian, and 4 Burkinabe, encompassing INSO's country director and deputy. Security Minister Mohamed Osana claims the organization was secretly gathering and disseminating sensitive security information detrimental to Burkina Faso's national security and potentially to foreign powers. He alleges that despite the suspension, INSO members continued clandestine activities and meetings. However, INSO Representative Anthony Neal refuted these claims, stating that data collection ceased on July 31st, and the team remained in Burkina Faso to address the detention and fulfill contractual obligations. INSO maintains its information is not confidential and is intended solely for the safety of humanitarian workers, particularly given the escalating violence and a record number of aid worker deaths globally this year. The organization emphasizes that the Burkinabe authorities were aware of its mandate and had previously cooperated. Despite efforts to engage with the government, misunderstandings persist. The detention comes amidst a tense political climate in Burkina Faso, following a 2022 coup led by Capt. Ibrahim Traoré, which has strained relations with Western nations. The junta has shifted its military support towards Russia. Human rights groups have documented abuses by the military against civilians and suppression of dissent, further complicating the situation. The organization's continued operation, despite the ban, highlights the critical need for safety information in a volatile environment, and the challenges in balancing security concerns with the delivery of humanitarian aid. The situation underscores the complex interplay of security, governance, and international relations within Burkina Faso.